Hello, I am Stephanie Joy, the attorney at All Things Social Security and Joy Disability Law. Your video is about to start. I just wanted to remind you that if you click the join button below, you can learn more about the memberships offered at a very affordable price that can give you a little more direct attorney answers to your questions. Have a great day and enjoy the video. Good morning. We've recently talked a little bit about earnings credits. People sometimes don't have enough credits for a particular kind of program they want under the Social Security Administration programs. And that would normally be Social Security Disability or Social Security Retirement. So I just wanted to make clear the difference because if we're talking about one or the other in a particular video, it literally is only one or the other. So let's just figure out for the two programs, Social Security Disability and Social Security Retirement, there are mandatory numbers of credits you have had overall. Then with the disability aspect, not the retirement, a certain number of them have to have been recently enough. So let's just get retirement out of the way because it's super simple. You are not going to be able to collect retirement unless you have 40 credits over your lifetime. It can be that they were earned 40 years ago. It doesn't have to be that they're earned, spread out in the end, in the beginning, recently at all, as long as you have 40. The exception would be if you became disabled and on Social Security Disability prior to hitting retirement age, so that those last requirements didn't apply, because when you are on disability and you hit full retirement age, your disability is going to seamlessly become Social Security retirement, and you're not going to be on the ranks of the disabled anymore. Now you're just old like the rest of us. Okay, so disability, a little different, right? Because that's when we can't last till retirement age. Some people get close, but not quite close enough, so they can get a few years of disability when they wouldn't otherwise be eligible for retirement because of their age. It's a recognition that the person is unable, from a medically disabling point of view, to make it to retirement age to collect their insurance benefits that they paid for retirement. Okay. Now, what about younger people? Okay. So generally, and I'm going to read you a few of the rules. I think we've been through this a couple of years ago, but let's just go through it again. So if you are, and I'm going to link this, it's a really handy Social Security brochure, but it's digital now. If you develop a disability before the age of 24, you generally need 1.5 years of work. That's 6 credits in the 3 years before your disability began. So they look to basically say the end of 2021 or age 21, I should say. There's 3 years between 21 and 24. You need to have half of the possible credits you could have earned. That means part-time, first of all, even getting all 4 credits is extremely part-time work. It's so minimal work, but you get to do even more minimal than that and only earn 2 credits. So as you know, in 2024, a credit costs $1,730. So if you, as a young person, earn twice as that, what is that, $3,460? I'm doing the math in my head quickly and correctly. Then, if you've earned that, you will have in each year, potentially in each year, I should clarify that too, your 6 credits, if you're 24, can be spread out during those 3 years. So it could be 2, 2, and 2, or it could be 4 and 2. It doesn't matter. It needs to be 6 credits in the prior 3 years. If you are between the ages of 24 and 30, you generally need credits for half of the time between 21 and when your disability began. So if you are 30 years old and you're disabled, that's when you're alleging you became disabled. 30 minus 21 is 9 years. You would need, no, that would be like 4.5 credits. Say 5 credits. Go with the 5, because they're never going to round up, right? If you are age 31 or older, you generally need to have at least 20 credits in the 10 years immediately before your disability began. So if you're, say, 40, you're going to need those 20 credits to be between the ages of 30 and 40. If you earned all of them before you turned 30, they're not going to count because that's that recency rule under disability. So, yeah. So once you're 62, you have to have all, it's the math will be, you have to have all 40 credits, 20 of which are in the last 10 years, right? At 62. If I'm going to give you just, I'm not going to read these all to you, but if you're 56, you're going to need a total of 34 credits. And of course, you have to have them in the most recent 10 years. Not all 34, but you know, the amount that you need, you have to have those recency ones clicked off to be eligible for disability, because they're not trying to throw disability at somebody who wasn't working recently anyway, so that the fact that they became disabled didn't really change their lifestyle. They weren't relying on work anyway. I think that's part of the reason why, you know, they're trying to take that out of the picture. This brochure also goes into survivor benefits. That's handy, but we're not going to go into that now because this is really just about clarifying the differences between credits needed for retirement, which is always going to be that 40 over your lifetime, and they do not have to be recent. Disability is different. It might be less because it graduates with age, but you're going to have that recency test. Okay. All right. That's enough for that. I hope you all have a great day. I'm in Harrisburg this week. Got in last night, and I will see you later. Bye now. Hey, so if the subject matter of the video you just listened to is of interest and you want more on it, stay tuned. Here's another one about the same topic, but a little bit different. Bye now. Hey, so let's clear up some confusion on why someone might be told they have enough credits for Social Security, but then when they go and apply for disability, they're told they don't. Okay, that's because there's a little bit of confusion on what the credits are and how they're counted for different programs. Okay, so when we work, the minimum amount needed to secure Social Security retirement benefits, which was the original Social Security program of all time, long before disability was created, you have to work 40 quarters worth of work in your entire life. That's 10 years. But remember, to get your quarterly credit, now they might call it an earnings credit, it doesn't take working full time. So you could work, so right now it's $1,600 and something, say, for one credit, and you would need 40 of them. So over the course of your life, 10 years. So let's say working life is 40 years. You're basically working about a quarter of the time, and it could be part-time because you don't have to be making $50,000 a year or $100,000 a year to get your 4 credits. You really, this year, you need $6,560 worth of work that you're taxed on. Okay. So it's not hard to get the credits. Once you've reached your 40 earnings credits for Social Security retirement, they're with you forever. You could stop working from here on out and you're still going to be insured for Social Security retirement. Keep in mind, your retirement will likely be quite small because you didn't pay in a lot. So basically think of it as like, all right, you paid in the premiums. You might have picked the lowest premium insurance policy out there for Social Security, and that's where you're going to get one when you trigger it with reaching the age of retirement. Okay, so what about disability? Disability also requires that you have worked a certain amount of time in your past adult life leading up to the date of disability. And it does vary depending on age, but once we hit our early 30s, we're all stuck with the same numbers by and large. But the big thing about disability is it is term insurance. And I'm using that term myself. I don't actually see it mentioned like that out of the government. And I say term because when we stop paying in, which means we stop working because we're disabled, you know, we're not paying the premiums anymore. So like any other term insurance, eventually our term is going to expire, the amount that we bought it for, and then we will be uninsured. So when you're filing for disability, you have to prove that A, you were insured, and then when does your term expire now that you've stopped working? And of course, I have a different video on if you haven't stopped totally working, but are only working very little part-time, your term will never expire. And that's a really wonderful thing. So even if you're not fully disabled, but you're just working part-time, maybe raising kids, you can keep that date ongoing in case you do become disabled. But aside from that, you generally need, most of us adults, to have 20 quarterly credits earned in the last 10 years. So that's different from retirement. Retirement, you're stuck with, you've got that going on until you retire, but you can't collect until you retire. Once you're insured, you're kind of always insured. Disability, no, it's term insurance. It's not whole life, if you will. So if you stopped in 2011 and you had been working robustly up to then, and you were insured at that time for Social Security disability, because you had the requisite number of earnings in the last 10 years, then you would probably, under that set of situation, 5 years of insured status for Social Security disability, because then your term's going to run out. Because for each of those following 5 years, you're one of being disabled, even though you haven't proven it yet. You still got the 9 years before you that you worked. Clearly, there's 20 quarterly credits in there, because 20 quarterly credits is only 5 years worth of quarters. So, year 2, now you still have 8 back there that you worked in, even though you didn't work the last 2. On year 3, you haven't worked the last 3, but you worked the prior 7. So you still have 5 years. It's when you get 5 years out that you no longer have enough quarters in those 5 years that you worked within those last 10 years, those old 5 years now. Those are 1 quarter is going to eventually drop off, and now you're going to have 19 quarterly credits in the last 10 years and not 20. And that's your DLI, date less insured. There is another video that kind of goes into that a little bit more. But if the time passes and you are now past your date less insured, your window closed, your term insurance terminated, you can make a claim for Social Security disability. And you have to allege and prove that you became fully disabled under the rules, that criteria and that standard, during that window after you started working substantially and until that DLI, date less insured, when your term insurance ran out. So you have to get all that evidence, all the medical evidence. Hopefully you are being a very, very good patient and going and advocating for yourself and getting diagnostics and medically complying with recommendations and physical therapies and conservative therapies, etc. That is the evidence you're going to need to prove your case. Okay. If you fail to prove it and your case becomes a final determination, either unappealed or you appealed it as far as you could, and now it's the final word, and that decision is after your date last insured, you will not be able to file for Title II again. Now the question did arise, well, what about reopening? Because that sometimes is possible. I'm not going to go into all the tricky rules, but the SSA.gov has a couple links. I'll try to share them below, where in a certain time frame, if you have just cause and other such things, you can reopen a case within a certain time frame after it has been closed and you didn't say properly appeal it. It's got strictures though, and sometimes they are hard to meet. And when you do it, usually the reason for reopening is that, there was all this evidence that they didn't have. Now, whether that's going to be just cause might be like, why didn't you provide it? I don't know. I'd still try it though, to say they didn't have any of the MRIs. They didn't have anything that showed that I was in a wheelchair, for 15 months. I would probably try to reopen if that was my only choice. And you're either going to get it reopened or not. And the reopening just means you have an opportunity now to prove that you were disabled back then with this new evidence. Doesn't mean they're going to find that you were disabled back then with the new evidence. Just that you had stuff that could have maybe changed the result. So there is that option. It is definitely not preferred because a lot of times it's not going to work. But you, again, have to get that evidence that existed back then. You can't just go to the doctor now and say, my doctor now says I'm disabled and I have been for 10 years. They're probably not going to let that current day rating of a doctor be dragged back as sufficient evidence that you actually had X, Y, and Z limitations, which are disabling back then. Not to say, I don't know that, I've heard some people say, no, we can't accept that this is dated later than your DLI. And I've made the argument that it is, but the doctor expressly in his letter said this is a retroactive condition. I'm discussing what she was like 10 years ago. Again, they might not find it credible, but my argument would be that they have to accept it as being, because he's talking about what she was like then. He's just writing it now, right? So that is an option. If he has really strong records from back then, that really kind of, now that you have this one letter, ties it all together, and that might be something that can be done. Again, all of these are kind of like those slim, you know, slim tries, but they do work sometimes. Yeah, just having a post, you know, a long after record from a doctor who barely ever saw you is not going to fly. They're not going to find it credible in all likelihood, because he doesn't have records that even support that. So where is he getting this information from? Oh, I just happen to remember it. You know, I don't think it's going to work. But again, you know, the more you try and the more you seek, if you have not downloaded your records or ordered your records from your providers yourself, I would do it now, because if you have an old DLI, there's a good chance that the providers aren't going to have your records much longer, if they still do. So it's always kind of important. And I would say this is true of anyone that's on disability and now has, you know, is a beneficiary. Go and order, maybe every year, order your records, maybe every 2 years. I know you have the portals. That's good. I would download those too, but sometimes there's more in the official set. The portals are still not 100%. So maybe just go and, you know, order them and keep them, you know, because it could come up later where you need to prove something. And that could particularly happen in a CDR. So anyway, all right. So insured status for retirement, different from insured status for disability, because a disability one is term insurance. So you did buy it, it ran out, and you didn't buy anymore. Okay. Always know your DLI. Check out that video. I'll talk to you later. Bye.